She's like the female James Bond.
She's safety chick.
The safety chick.
I love that safety chick. That's
She calls
what
herself the safety chick.
I was a stalking victim, having to learn every possible aspect of personal safety to stay alive.
The safety chick. We love her.
Yeah. Hey, Kathleen Gallagher, the safety chick here. And I get messages all the time from people asking me how to get their personal information off the internet. And I always tell them, it's really tough to put toothpaste back in the tube. Once your information is out there, it's out there. Your personal information is available to anyone with an internet connection. This information can include your home address, phone number, names of relatives, and more. If you Google your name and the city you live in, you will see dozens of people search sites exposing your private information. This information can be used by stalkers, criminals, and identity thieves. This is dangerous, but you can do something about it. You can remove yourself from these sites and take your privacy back. Here today to explain in much more detail how to go about this is Pete James, founder of OfficerPrivacy.com. Pete served on an aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy working as an intelligence specialist. He then moved on to a 25-year career in law enforcement, rising to the rank of lieutenant. He's testified as a computer forensic expert in state, federal, and civil trials, and is a skilled open source intelligence analyst with experience investigating thousands of criminal, civil, and corporate cases. Pete combined his law enforcement and online investigation skills and created OfficerPrivacy.com, a company that removes officers' private information from people search sites so they and their families can feel safe again. And he's going to teach us how to do that as well. Welcome, Pete. Okay, so give us the background on how you decided to start the company.
Well, thanks, Kathleen, for having me. It's great to be on your show. So I was working these cases, and I was using these sites in my investigations, and I came to the realization that if the good guys, law enforcement officers, can use these sites to do research on people we're investigating, then they can use them on us. And so I decided that I would remove myself from these sites. And it took me 6 hours.
6 hours. Well, see, that's it. Because it's not that's the whole thing is they don't make it easy on you, right? It's really complicated and hard. And so it took you 6 hours to remove yourself from, how many sites, do you remember? How many sites were there?
There were 25 at that time we were covering.
Wow. So, what is it? So you decided to start, you could see the need for this, right? In now with the internet everybody has access to everything. So what was the first, case or person other than yourself? How did you start rolling it out, and how did you, get other people to realize that this was a serious thing and that you could help them with your service?
Well, my background is, as you mentioned, computer forensics and programming. And when it took me 6 hours, I thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way that we can cut this time down. And so I hired a programmer, and I said, "This is what I want." And I gave him some very rudimentary, an Excel spreadsheet with what I was looking for. And he turned it into this program that is unbelievable. Essentially, we take that 6 hours and we reduce it down to 1. And so when we did that, when we had that software, then I started using it on other family members, started using it on friends, neighbors. Of course, I had their permission to do this. And then when I realized that, yes, this is workable, this is something we can do, then that's when I decided, along the way, I decided, let's roll this out and help the current law enforcement officers that are out there now. So I retired several years ago, but I still have many friends, a family in law enforcement, and I really have a love for the profession. It's an honorable profession, and the overwhelming majority of officers are out there working very difficult, doing a difficult job, and doing it very well. Unfortunately, there are some who want to bring harm to them. They will show up at their front door and protest or riot, whatever you want to call it, damage uh, their property, threaten their family. And this happens all the time. If you Google that, you will see that officers who are involved in incidents, within a few days, they have people showing up at their front door,
Wow.
threatening to harm their family.
So, yeah.
So,
So, what are the sites what are the most popular or sites where, they are exposing your personal private information?
so the top 5 sites, just based on web traffic: White Pages, Spokeo, Been Verified, My Life, and Instant Checkmate.
And
Those-
where do they get the information? Where are they pulling it from?
Every single time you get a magazine subscription, every time you sign up for a grocery store rewards card, you get a delivery from a home improvement store. Anytime you check that box that says, yes, the small print, anytime you check that box and if it contains your name and your home address, it's getting entered and it's getting ingested by the data brokers who take that and they collate it and associate other data with you. They sell them to these sites, and then these sites post it on the internet for anybody to see.
Right. And it is. And that's, I always say, personal information is personal. You get to decide who has it. And so, you have to be, I've worked for years after being a stalking victim to keep my personal information private. And inevitably, something gets out there. When we bought our house, our first house back in California, trying to hold title not in my name because that's all public record. So it was really difficult to try to find a bank that would, or a mortgage that would hold title in a different way, with a number or a PO, a special box, something that is not connected to me at all. And it was really tough. And recently, I've seen that some of my personal information is out there. In fact, that's how you and I started talking, is that, I want to learn, use your service, and I want to make it, available to all the people. And as I said in the open, I have so many stalking victims and people that reach out to me all the time saying, oh my gosh, he found me, my personal information's out there. How do I get it off? And as you said, those sites make it really difficult. Plus there's so many. And as you were saying, sure, your service, and I want you to really explain what it is, because I really do think it's a valuable service, and that our listeners and viewers would benefit greatly from it. But so just to go back, so those are the top sites, but don't those sites have legs as well? Like there's one, like you said, there's the White Pages, but then there's also other sites connected. Explain that a little bit.
So these companies, what they'll do is they will open up smaller companies. They're using the same data, but they will have smaller companies that they use to display your information. This is all about money, right? When you Google someone, you get these links to these sites. You click on them. Some information is free, but behind the scenes, they want you to buy a report, a more comprehensive report with information on there. So it's all about money. What they'll do is they will create smaller sites so that when you go to Google and look at the Google results, they will have their affiliated sites show up on the first and second page of Google, because they know most people don't go to page 2 and 3 and 4 of Google. So big sites create small sites so that you can, so you don't move off those and you end up buying the reports from them. One site, Been Verified, they actually feed several other small sites. So Been Verified has is the most impactful removal you can do, because
That's what I was actually just going to ask you that. Of all the sites, which one is the largest with the most reach that could have the most effect right away? So you're saying been verified?
Been verified, yes.
Interesting. So, you know, what is the biggest mistake that people make with getting their information out there?
Are you talking about how it feeds the data brokers, or once they remove their information?
No, before they remove their information,
Yeah.
before they even realize it's there. What is the biggest feeder? You talked about checking the box and doing things, but on different sites. But what mistakes that you find that people make that gets their information out there to God and everyone without even realizing that they've just done that?
Well, I would say using your home address. I suggest using a PO box or a mail drop, like a UPS um, business, to use that instead of your home address, and use that on as many things as you possibly can, because you don't want to feed the data brokers, right? Stop feeding the beast, and eventually the beast will go away. So I suggest using a PO box, um, not your home address, on everything.
Right.
Packages, magazine subscriptions, anything anybody that asks for your home address, give them the PO box.
And what about how hard is it? I always wonder this because people, very few people in this day and age have home phone numbers anymore, right? In the yellow pages, everybody has a cell phone. So how easy is it to get people's cell phone numbers? I did know, that a few years ago, all of the carriers were breached, hacked into at some point. So all of our personal information is out there. I know a very good friend of mine, Paul Violas, is a security has a security company, and he's been dealing with extortion cases left and right because of the breach, right? So, um, how does people's cell phone numbers get out there like that?
Yeah, I suggest using either Google Voice or other VoIP. They call it VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocols, and there are apps um, that you can get from your phone to use a phone number other than your real phone. You can still send text messages. You can still send pictures and videos. It acts just like your regular text messaging. Except it's not texting. That way, you protect your cell phone number, which is important because if you use two-factor authentication, right, that's where you get that extra one-time password to log into an account. You send that two-factor authentication to your cell phone, not your VoIP number. So this protects that, because there have been cases where somebody essentially takes over your account, takes over your phone. They take over your phone, then they can get that second factor, that password, to help log into your account.
So
Um,
how do you go about, just explain it in a little more detail. I'm kind of, over my head with the technology stuff. So, but how do you go about getting one of those accounts? And is it on your computer? Is that how you do it? Or is it I'm not following.
so you have your cell phone. If you have a Google account, you can simply sign up for a Google Voice account, which would
Right.
act as a cell phone service through your phone.
Oh,
So you
okay.
get a
Okay.
call, it goes to your phone, you answer it just like normal. You get a text message, it comes through an app, and you respond to it or create messages just like you would any other. So it integrates with your actual cell phone number, but they're not using your cell phone number. They're using
Hmm.
a different number to do all that.
That's great.
Now, if you have an aversion to Google because of privacy concerns, there are apps that you can search for in the App Store and find a voice over internet protocol, VoIP, and use that instead. But there are many options. But the whole idea here is that you're not using your real cell phone number.
Right.
You're not giving your real cell phone number out to anyone. You're
It's the
keeping that
same.
private.
Exactly. It's the same thing. The same concept is, you want to build a perimeter around you virtually and physically. It's the barriers, right? The more barriers. So right on with the PO box for sure. Never give out your home address, because again, once you do, it's really tough. It's out there for God and everyone. And then I love that idea of getting the VoIP, that I'm going to do that today. As a matter of fact, Pete, as soon as we get off this show, I'm going to do it today. Anyway, so explain to me how your service works. So when you and I talked before, the only other service that I really knew of was reputation.com. And they crawl through and, look for things on the internet with your name and different things like that. So explain to me how your service works and what is different about that than reputation.com.
Sure. So what we do is we take you off the top 30 people search sites that are exposing your private information. And those sites are the ones that I mentioned, right? White Page has been verified, Spokeo. These are the sites that anybody can go online with. You don't need an account. You don't need to pay money. You just go online, you go to these sites, you search for someone, put their name and address in, and you will be able to see their home address, their phone number, their email address, the names of relatives. And so we take you off the top 30 sites for our. We also then, once we remove you, we monitor those sites because you will show up on those sites again. When you show up again, we remove you again.
So it's not.
So
It's not a. This is not a one-time fix. That's the thing. That people out there, you have to be diligent. You have to be diligent about keeping your personal information private, and you have to be diligent about Googling yourself and seeing what's out there and removing it as quickly as possible. It is not a one-time thing. That's the point. That's why services like yours make sense, because who has the time to do that? And you've created, and is it an app? Is it an algorithm? Explain it to me.
So a couple of things there. Number one, I suggest that you just become more knowledgeable and educate yourself on what information is out there about you. And you can do that with a simple Google search. Put your name in quotes, put your city, and then put the word address in there. When you do that, you'll see what I'm talking about. All these sites will come back and show your information. If you really want to narrow it down, then include your house number and your street name in quotes as well. And then you'll see which sites are listing your information. So become knowledgeable about what's out there. And do the same thing on social media. It's not just people search sites. Go in from an outside account or a different account you created, or have a friend who you're not friends with search for you on those social media platforms to see what information is there. And so start with knowledge, start with knowing what information is there, and then take steps to fix it. For your social media accounts, make them private, delete posts. If I could, I would suggest getting rid of them, deleting all of the information, and then deleting the accounts would be ideal. But if you don't want to do that, I would suggest. I don't want to get anybody in trouble with the terms and conditions, but I would suggest not using your real name so that you're not so easily searchable. It will not make you. People may still be able to find you, but it's better than what it is right now.
Well, and I always say, in terms of, when I was being stalked, it was really hard because I couldn't have bills in my name. I couldn't, my driver's license, everyone wants your home address because they won't let you use a PO box. Right. So, it was really hard. And I am going to say that I did use aliases quite a bit. Because what alternative, a private investigator goes into a minimum wage and employee, whatever, and is bribed all the time. That happens all the time, unfortunately. To get personal information. I'm sure you know that after being in law enforcement all this time. So, it is better just to not have anything out there. But you also want to be realistic. My whole thing is, you don't want to live in fear. You don't want to be paranoid. It's not about being paranoid. It's about being smart and making smart choices and monitoring what's out there. I always say stalk yourself because, to see what's out there. I don't think a lot of people do. I mean, I think, like I said, the people that contact me that are looking for help, they're worried that they're being stalked and they're in fear for their safety, that kind of thing. Those people know. But I'm saying John Q. Public out there, I don't think they're really aware of how much information is out there. And, You've proven it. You can get it off. You can, but it takes constant diligence, right?
Correct. Correct. Well, let me back up and say that I created officerprivacy.com to serve the law enforcement community, but you don't have to be a law enforcement officer to use our products. We are open to anyone, and I can tell you at least half of our clients are not law enforcement. But if I can, I'll explain the two products that we have. And I mentioned that we had software created specifically to make the removals faster, quicker. And so we use that software internally to find you and then delete your information from those sites. That's our premium product. So you sign up, you send us your information, and then we take care of the rest. There's nothing else you need to do. Fill out that form. We take care of everything for you. We remove your information. We follow up, and then we monitor. We send you reports along the way. But because I wanted to reach a larger audience and get this out there, I essentially made that software free. So anybody can sign up. You go to our website. It's called our quick removal software. You can use it free for 14 days. After that, it's a few dollars a month. I do recommend you keep it because I have a way of keeping track of all the sites that you're on that you've been removed from. And it's just a quick, easy way for you to go through and do a quick scan. But either way, sign up 14 days free. It only takes a couple hours, so you have plenty of time to go in. With that product, you can add your family members living with you at no additional cost.
So it's kind of that is the do it yourself model, right? Basically
Yes,
using your software to go in, and it is a process too, isn't it? Where to get off the sites, you have to click through certain things, right?
yes, it will take at least an hour or two, depending on how quickly you can go through the sites. I do have instructions with screenshots and bright red arrows, as well as some other help documents for that product. But if you just want somebody to do it for you and not have to worry about it again, then you go to our site, officerprivacy.com, select option two, which is we do it for you. And then we guide you through filling out your information, sending it to us, and we start right away.
And so how often, so is this an annual subscription fee? How does it work?
I have no contracts. I'm month to month, cancel anytime, money back guarantee, of course. And once you sign up, there is an initial removal and account setup fee. After that, there is a monthly fee starting after 30 days, but I have no contracts. I need to prove my value every single month to you, and so it's month to month.
So how often do you recommend to check check the sites to make sure that you're not back up there? How long of a
Well,
time?
if you're doing it yourself, I would recommend you go through all the sites, double check and make sure that you have been removed because many of these sites will not remove you the first time you ask. There will also be times where maybe you have a secondary listing, maybe under a maiden name or an older listing with an older address. So once you go through those, then it depends on your you do a vulnerability assessment or threat assessment or risk assessment, and I would say once a month, once every 3 months, set a calendar reminder to go through and check the sites. You will come back up on the sites though. That's the thing.
That's the question is you remove it. Let's say, today we remove them all. How quickly do you see the names pop back up? Like they're crawling. What is it? The algorithms or whatever that crawls through that puts your data back onto those sites. How does that happen?
So these sites, they will remove your information. They don't really want to. They don't like it when you remove your information because, of course, that's less money for them, less of the possibility that somebody's going to pay for your information. But we do find that the average is 2 to 3 sites every 3 months when we go back and do our manual check. We have two types of checks when we monitor. One is where we scan the back end of the sites looking for a connection between your real name and your real address. The other is where we actually go eyeballs on a one of my staff members, and we're all current or former US based law enforcement officers right here in the US. We do not outsource anything. Once every 3 months, we will go back in and check each one of the sites. We find that you've been relisted. We remove your information again. But I can share the top sites that we have found through all of our research that are most likely to relist your information.
Yeah. What ones are
Okay, so
those?
those are Persopo, US Phone Book, Spy Dialer, Check Them, and Spy Talks.
And
So if you
are they connected to any of the other sites like we were talking about before, been verified or any of that, or are they completely independent data
they're independent.
sites? Wow, there
Yeah,
are
they're
so
independent.
many. It's ridiculous. How? Wow. You
There
know,
are.
this I love this, and I love your service, and I really encourage. We'll have all your information up on my website so people can find you. And I want to leave it with this: the thing that you said to me that it is so true, because I was like, okay, well, what happens after? And you made the comment, look, it's not about getting; it's about doing it before something bad happens, right? Be prepared. Take control of your personal information before you're hacked, before you're, extorted, before your identity theft is stolen, right? So that was, I think, the most poignant thing that you and I were talking about is, yeah, you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, but if you can get ahead of it, so much the better, right?
Definitely. This is definitely something you need to get ahead of and think about in advance, because if there is a critical incident and your name gets out there, it's too late. I will say also that these sites, it's not just for the law enforcement officer who's afraid of a protester or a rioter or some criminal showing up at their front door. The information that these sites provide leads very easily into identity theft. It has your date of birth, the names of your relatives, of course, your phone numbers, and all this other information. So, how they could use this is, let's say somebody's trying to hack into your account. Well, these sites list the names of your relatives. One of your relatives is your mother. You go to the mother's site, you get their maiden name. So now I have an answer to a security question of a common security question for accounts, and how many times you uh, create an account, and one of the questions is, which one of these is your old address? Well, your old addresses are on those sites as well. Um, your
Right. It's like one
your email
thing
account,
leads to another. That's
right?
it. One thing
Right.
always leads to another. There's always like a chain. And boy,
Your
those
email
boy,
account,
right.
yeah. So your email accounts are on there too, and I always suggest having one email account for your most important sites, banks, your retirement, your important ones, and then having one that you share with everyone else. And uh, I also talk. Oh, I have an ebook, and in this ebook, I talk about common things you can do to improve your online security and privacy. And one of the things I talk about is temporary emails, so that you don't give out your email account to just anyone. Also, look at what happens when you want to do a password reset on an account that you've forgotten the password for. Sends that password reset notification to an email. Well, if somebody can hack into your email account, then they can they can go through your other accounts, ask for a password reset. If they have access to your email account, then they can create a rule so that those emails all go to a folder that you don't even know about, and then they're immediately marked as read. So you won't even know that somebody's trying to get into your accounts because they
It's not going to your accounts.
It's not, you're not seeing it. It's
Right.
getting shown as red right away. And then
So
of
what do
course
you suggest? So what do you suggest the best defense against that is? Having temporary, Gmail accounts or Yahoo, whatever. Is that how would you go about doing that?
the most important thing for that is to set up two-factor authentication on every one of your online accounts. So the two-factor, the second factor is a one-time temporary password. It is either sent to a cell phone as a text message, or there are apps that you can get on your cell phone which will show temporary passwords. So set up two-factor authentication on every single account you can, especially your email accounts. That way, even if somebody does get your password to your email account, they can't get in without that second password.
The two
And we've heard about all these breaches, these data breaches. Well, what
Yeah,
they're sharing is your name, your username, your email address, and your password. Now, your password may be easy to see, or it may be hashed, which is a mathematical algorithm. But either way, your your data is being exposed, and when it's exposed, somebody could possibly hack into your account, and then it gets worse from there.
right.
Because what they
Exa
do is they get into your account, they set up two-factor authentication, so you can't get in now.
and, how common is that? I mean, in terms of the cases that you've seen over the years and, is it rising? Is there more of this, or has the two, uh, you know, factor identification, has that really kind of helped curb a lot of that?
That will definitely help curb. There are more and more programs, like, let's say I identify, due to one of these breaches, that I have a username and password from you and I know what those are. There are programs that you can just put that information in and it'll hit 100, 200 random sites just looking to see if you use that same password and you have that same username in your account. So there are programs out there and they're fairly straightforward and simple to use. This is why you've probably heard the advice, never reuse a password. This is why, because if you use a password on one site and it's discovered, it can be used on another site.
They
And this is
say,
also,
what did I hear? That you should change your passwords as often as you change your toothbrush. I'm thinking that's kind of a long time. I don't. How often do you change your? I don't know.
so I use a password manager, and you remember one password, and the password manager creates these crazy long passwords
Yeah,
that nobody could ever remember, but they're unique to each site. So that's another really important thing you can do. For password managers, there are paid and free accounts. I would definitely recommend a password manager. Like I said, you remember one password, the password manager remembers the rest, and that password manager will create unique passwords for each and every site. That way you don't have to worry about it.
that's a great idea. Absolutely, God, so much today. So many different, the authenticate, the two factor identification, authentication. Why can't I say that? Um, the checking yourself, googling yourself, making sure that your information isn't out there before something terrible happens. um what would be the one thing that you've seen over the years in terms of the different cases that you've worked on? What is the most common um crime, I think, that is committed using that information? I know you said identity theft, but do you really feel that that is um, kind of the top crime that happens from personal information being out there?
As far as numbers, I would say definitely identity theft. Again, I got into this because I wanted to help law enforcement officers um, feel safer at home, so their you know home address isn't exposed, specifically from criminals, people they've arrested, maybe people getting out of prison after 5 or 10 years. Um, so, I don't necessarily market to everyone. because my focus is law enforcement officers. But like I said, half of my clients are not law enforcement. They just want their privacy back.
Right. And you could be helping, I mean, again, so many victims, so many stalking victims, domestic violence victims. I mean, it's a wonderful tool. It really is. So for everybody out there, on my website, you will have the link to his officerprivacy.com service and check him out. And any other questions, get right to him. Where else can they find you? Are you on any social media?
I do. I have an Instagram and a Facebook and a LinkedIn. I can send you those links as well.
Okay. It'll all be up there. Thank you so much for sharing all this today. And I'm going to, I'll be talking to you soon. I got to get my VoIP. That was the other thing. I have so many things. I have a huge list. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's great to be here.
Thanks. So, wow, lots of information. And see, it's not a helpless case. I mean, if your information is out there, this is the way to hack away at it, and no pun intended, and really, get control of your personal information. Like I say, personal information is personal. You decide who gets to have it. So let me read some of the top safety check rules about keeping your information private. Okay. Number 1, find out what information is open to the public. Like you said, research yourself like a stalker would. Start with a Google search and don't stop on the first or second page results. Search using Bing. It's the number 2 search engine behind Google, and you'll see different results. And that's interesting. It's true. 2, clean up your social media. Make your accounts private and be careful what you post. If you've given too much on your social media, erase the posts. And he says to, closing your account is best. And, you really have to make a decision about that. If it's just keep your personal information off of your Instagram pages and keep your pages private. For me, I'm a public, person. So I have my Safety Chick Instagram, and I post for work. I don't post my personal stuff. So keep your personal information private and keep your accounts private. Number 3, remove your personal information from people search sites. This is the easiest way for someone to find you. Remember, you can go to the officerprivacy.com and do it that way, or try to do it yourself. You scroll down on all those sites and you can see how to unsubscribe or whatever. And again, as he said, it took him 6 hours. So it's not for the faint of heart. You got to have a lot of time to do it. Number 4, stop the cycle by not using your home address. Use a P.O. box or mail drop. And that really is true. You got to be diligent about that. But try not to ever put your home address out there, because then again, once it's out there, it's out there. And don't become complacent. 5, set up a reminder to repeat the steps. The internet is always updating, so you need to stay on top of it. You can set up Google alerts too that will send you an email every time certain search terms are found on the internet. So these are all great, great tips. So be sure to check out officerprivacy.com, because caring about your personal safety is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Until next time.
She's like the female James Bond.
She's safety chick.
The safety chick.
I love that safety chick. That's
Yeah.
what
She
I
calls
did.
herself the safety chick.
I was a stalking victim, having to learn every possible aspect of personal safety to stay alive.
Safety chick. We love her.
Yeah.